It's a tough act to follow the Ho-Oh run, but one Pokémon has to do it, and the responsibility lies with Seaking. And just before we get into this run, I want to remind everybody there's a poll on the community tab to determine whether legendary Pokemon like Ho-Oh should be split off onto their own leaderboard, or whether they should stay on the main run leaderboard. I'm going to keep that going until the next legendary, which is Lugia, so that will appear on the main run leaderboard as well. But once we have a bit of a consensus, we can then absolutely do whatever the majority chooses, so they'll either be on their own separate leaderboard, or they'll stay forever on the main run leaderboard, probably in very high positions. But now it's time to turn our attention over to the Seaking run. I'm going to start by taking a look at our stats. We are level 5 with 20 HP. We're holding a berry and our two moves are Peck and a Tail Whip. We've got 12 in attack, 11 in defense, just 9 in special attack, 11 in special defense and 12 in speed. And with those palindromic stats, we will get the graphics up and start our journey across the two regions. Of course, I'll show you the very first encounter we have with a wild Pokemon, and in this instance it's a level 3 Centret. Peck is a 3-shot on the Centret, we knock it out, and then we can look at our first rival battle together. Of course, the rival's going to have Chikorita, and while Peck may be super effective, I thought because we have relatively low attack for this point in the run, where the rival really is relevant, that Razor Leaf is going to be much more meaningful than giving the rival Totodile. But now let's take our first gym leader on in battle. This is Falkner. He is of course the flying type specialist who led with a Pidgey that's already fainted. We're going to try and confuse the Pidgeotto because we learned Supersonic a little bit earlier on in the run, but this just is not working out for us. We do eventually land the confusion off, and then we can get to pecking. Unfortunately, my strategy didn't pay off here. I was hoping for the Pidgeotto to hit itself a couple of times in confusion to speed the battle up, but still we got through in our first attempt in 7 minutes and 44 seconds, and we can move on to Bugsy. We've learnt Horn Attack by this point, so we have a half-decent normal type move on the learn set, and we can combine that with Peck, which is super effective against the bugs. We're going into the Scyther on 52 HP, which should be more than enough with a critical hit to knock him out in 2 shots, and we get through Bugsy in a time of 13 minutes and 54 seconds. Up next is that dreaded Rival 2. It's even worse of course because we're a water type Pokemon, but we'll see exactly how we get on. And of course, he's going to lead with Ghastly. Now, Ghastly can send us to sleep with Hypnosis, but fortunately for us, it misses on its attempt, and that is the first bit of luck we have in this battle. The second bit of luck is getting a critical hit against the Bayleaf. That means that we only got hit by one Razor Leaf, and even though Reflect is up, we get yet more luck as Supersonic misses, and we get a critical hit with Horn Attack. We got through Rival 2 with luck more than judgment. Let's see if we can carry this luck on with Whitney. She is our third gym leader together, and she leads with Clefairy, who hit Double Slap 5 times. That's not the luck we're wanting. Once again, we're going to try and confuse the cow, just like we tried against the Pidgeotto. We get it confused, and it hits itself in confusion. We then start to Tail Whip. We're going to try and get this cow's defense as low as possible. Unfortunately for us, though, we did get flinch locked, and we have to try again. Sometimes it's absolutely worth trying to luck your way through a battle. The gym leaders are the hardest battles we encounter in these runs, and we will easily get past all the trainers up towards the Kimono Girls if we can beat Whitney. Unfortunately in this instance though, the luck didn't fall our way, so we end up having to go on a bit of a grind. We're just going to get 2 levels, taking out a lot of the trainers around Goldenrod City. We'll try again at level 26 to see if we do any better. And honestly, the answer is no. We're still going to have to use luck to get our way through this battle. This is going to be our last key battle before getting Surf. And while we have relatively low special attack, we cannot underestimate the power of Surf. It's a base 95 power move with Stab, and that is going to be game changing. So really, Whitney is going to be one of the biggest obstacles of this entire run. We just have to get the luck to make sure that we can knock this cow out. There's no sense in trying to even attack this thing until we've lowered its defenses enough, and once the rollout can't build up anymore, we eventually get through this battle in a time of 25 minutes and 37 seconds. Overall, not the worst split in the world for Whitney, and now we do have Surf on the Learn set. This is going to be great for Pokemon like Haunter, but you can see even with Stab we didn't one-shot it, and that means we're on a clock for the rest of this battle. We've also got Hidden Power Ice on the Learn set. That is primarily to deal with the Bayleaf, and it looks like it just about two-shot. That could have been pretty hairy if we didn't get those extra levels before Whitney. But as it stands, we got through on our very first try, and now we can go into Ecruteak Gym. Just before battling Morty, we encounter Medium Martha. She's got a pair of Garcy and a Haunter for us to knock out, and it's against the final Garcy in this battle we grow up to level 34. And it is at level 34 that Goldeen evolves into Seaking. So now we have the final Pokemon for the rest of the run, and we have a nice buff to our base stats. We've still only got 65 in special attack, but that is a lot more than we had as a Goldeen, and it should hopefully mean a lot of these Pokemon are now one-shots. As we can see, it's a one-shot against Morty's Garcy and his first Haunter. It's a two-shot against the Gengar, but it uses Mean Luck for no good reason, and that just means we can knock out the final Haunter to obtain Morty's badge in 36 minutes and 20 seconds. Now that we've evolved, the run really can pick up pace, especially because we got Surf on the Learn set as well. I really don't think Chuck is going to pose too many issues for us whatsoever. We've got relatively high attack, we picked up Return because of the early grinding we did against Whitney, and we also have a little bit of luck. We three-shot Chuck's Poliwrath as we use up our Minceberry to obtain the Storm badge in 38 minutes and 53 seconds. Up next is Jasmine. She is of course the Steel-type specialist who leads with Magnemite. Surf is strong enough to one-shot both of her Magnemites, and it's going to be super effective of course against her Steelix. We knock it out in one fell swoop, grow to level 37, and we say thank you for the Mineral Badge in a time of 39 minutes and 56 seconds. Our 7th and penultimate Jotonian gym leader is Price. He is Mahogany's leader and he leads with Seal. Seal is a one-shot with Return, so we can turn our attention to the Dugong. It's a two-shot as we take a headbutt to the chops from the Dugong, and that just leaves Piloswine left to go. Piloswine is weak to all of the starter types, including water, so one Surf knocks it out and we obtain the Glacier Badge in 45 minutes and 55 seconds. Let's now make our way into the Goldenrod Underground, where the 4th rival battle ambushes us, and in this time of course he's going to lead with Golbat. We have Hidden Power Ice on the Learn set, and it's a one-shot on the Golbat, so we can turn our attention to the Magnemite. As we saw with Jasmine, it's a one-shot with Surf against any Magnemite we come across, and here comes Meganium. Meganium's Razor Leaf hits for paltry damage as we move on to the Haunter. This is going to be a one-shot with Surf, and the final Pokemon is Sneasel. Once again, we sweep with Surf to knock it out, and we are through the 4th rival battle in 51 minutes and 6 seconds. Just under 6 minutes later, we find ourselves in front of Claire. She's our final gym leader in Johto, and she leads with 3 Dragonair. It'll come as absolutely no surprise that we're going to knock all of these out with a single Hidden Power Ice for each of them, so we can turn our attention over to Kingdra. The strategy here was to try and avoid Claire getting into a healing loop, however we very low rolled on Return, so Claire got herself into a healing loop, so we end up using 2 further Returns later to knock it out, and that is of course the Rising Badge in 58 minutes and 17 seconds. I am always happy with a sub 1 hour Claire, but especially with a Pokemon like Seaking that doesn't have the biggest learn set in the world. Let's now see how we get on against the final rival battle. His Sneasel was no problem whatsoever, neither was his Magneton, both going down to a single Surf, and here comes Meganium. We have Horn Drill on the Learn set as a bit of a Hail Mary, but we don't need to use it this time. We don't even get poisoned by Poison Powder. We one-shot the Golbat with a Hidden Power Ice, and we swap back to Surf for the Haunter. That just leaves Kadabra left to go. We swap to Return because it's got paper-thin defences, and we defeat the rival for the final time in 1 hour, 1 minute and 43 seconds. And with that, we're at the Pokemon League, so let's now heal up our Seaking and the rest of the HM friends before we say thank you to them. So thank you to Kenya, to Abra, to Psyduck, and merci to Parrish. You get some lovely well-deserved rest as Seaking takes on the Pokemon League. We will of course pick up our 4 full restores, we'll either need them or we won't, and now let's take a look at our stats. We are level 52 with 176 HP, we're holding the Scamulet coin with Surf, Return, Horn Drill and Hidden Power Ice. 140 in attack, 104 in defense, a respectable 111 in special attack, 127 in special defense and 109 in speed, but of course those are the out of battle stats. We'll get a big buff in battle, as we'll see against Will. He's our first league member, he's a Psychic type specialist specialist who leads with Xatu, and unfortunately for Xatu, it is weak to ice. Same thing goes for the Executor as he sets up a Reflect. That just means we're going to have to try and use our special moves for most of the rest of this battle. We use a Horn Drill against Jinx just to flex, and then we get another Horn Drill against the Slowbro as well. They're the two big threats of this battle taken care of. We'll go back to Hidden Power Ice against the Xatu as it gets caught in a healing loop. We knock it out into 2 further Hidden Power Ices, we grow to level 53, and that's well done in 1 hour 3 minutes exactly. Up next is Koga, the Poison type specialist who leads with Ariados. Ariados is taken care of with a single Surf, and then we swap to Horn Drill for the Venomoth. Unfortunately, we missed 2 turns in a row, but so does Venomoth. We one-shot it with Return because that was a range the entire time, and then we go to Surf for the Fortress. 2 Surfs is all it takes to knock out the Fortress, and we are on to Muck. We use a combination of Surf and Return as Muck minimalises to get through it, and then we can turn our attention to Crobat. We throw the Hail Marys, it double teams and Horn Drill hits, and that means we're through Koga in 1 hour 3 minutes and 46 seconds. Let's move on to Bruno. He is of course the fighting type specialist of the league who leads with Hitmontop. It's going to be a 2-shot with Hitmontop with him digging to deal minor damage, and then we can move on to Hitmonchan. We use Return against the Hitmonchan and take light damage from a Thunder Punch. We don't get paralysed, that means we can continue with the rest of the battle. It's a 1-shot against the Hitmonlee with Return, and here comes the big player of the battle. Machamp's cross shot misses though, and we critical hit to knock it out, and then finally there's Onyx. Onyx is weak to Surf by 4 times, so it gets knocked out and we are through Bruno in 104.26. Let's see how we get on with Karen. She of course leads with Scumbrion. We use the HP up Bitterberry strategy here and it works perfectly. We get through the Umbreon without being confused and without an accuracy drop, and then we don't get paralysed by Vileplume because it goes straight for Petal Dance. That should make the rest of this battle relatively easy. We misclick with Return against the Gengar, but it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Surf wasn't going to be a 1-shot, we just end up being cursed a little bit out of sequence. We 1-shot the Murkrow with Surf, we carry on with the Houndoom as well, and that is Karen done on our first try in 1 hour 5 minutes and 25 seconds. There's only one obstacle between us and the Hall of Fame now. It's time for Lance, the Liar with the Flyers, and he's going to lead with Gyarados. Now this battle is incredibly easy if you're a water type that has an ice type move on the learn set. All you need to do is get through the Gyarados and then you sweep. Hidden Power Ice is going to 1-shot all 3 of the Dragonites, and then we have a super effective Surf for the other 2 Pokemon. So he starts with all 3 of the Dragonites, and as we see it is a 1-shot, and then we can swap to Surf for the Charizard and the Aerodactyl. He sends out Aerodactyl last, that's probably his strongest Pokemon he has against us, but even that is too weak to survive a Surf, and we knock it out to defeat Lance in 1 hour 6 minutes and 22 seconds. Our Hall of Fame time is 1 hour 6 minutes and 38 seconds. A very good run considering Seaking's limitations, but we've still got yet more to come, so don't you dare go anywhere, because Kanto is next. And as we rejoin the action here in Vermilion City, the first thing we do in Kanto is the last thing we do in Johto. We're going to get another rare candy, this time from the chairman of the Pokémon fan club. And with that safely tucked away in our pocket, I'm more than confident that Seaking will be able to take on Surge. So that means we're going to be doing the regular Kantonian routing. We'll start with Surge, move to Erica, then do Janine. We'll pop back to Saffron to take care of Sabrina and Misty, and then we'll battle Brock, Blaine and Blue. And during this Kantonian gauntlet, I want to talk to you about the nerves I'm currently facing. As I'm recording this voiceover, it's just a couple of days before the big anniversary stream, so I am working a little bit ahead of myself. But on that stream, I've got to play 2 Pokemon games I'm not very familiar with. We did a little bit of Fire Red here on the channel about a year or so ago, and the other game is Pokemon Emerald, which we've barely touched at all in these last 2 years. But as part of these celebrations, I thought it would be fun to take a Pokemon I am incredibly familiar with Girafarig, and take it around the 2 games that I am really daunted by. Fire Red just didn't stick with me last time. I think it's the double Intimidate you can get on a lot of Blue's Pokemon that really did throw me for a loop. and then Emerald is one of the longest games you can challenge run in the early generations of Pokemon games, so that is going to be a marathon. And I've decided to do very little prep work. I've decided on my HM friends, I've got a list of rare candy locations, and that's pretty much it, because I want it to be an organic experience, but that does come with an awful lot of pressure. The vast majority of the runs we'll ever see here on the channel are in Pokemon Crystal, and at this point in time I am incredibly familiar with the routing. I know exactly where I need to go and when I need to go there, and I know how to pivot if something is going wrong. But you take me into Gen 3 Kanto or you take me into Gen 3 Hoenn, and I'm going to be clueless. I have absolutely no idea what most of the route trainers have for their parties, and I just about know what the gym leaders in Elite Four have. It's going to be a big learning curve, and it's hopefully going to open the door to having monthly Fire Red and monthly Emerald runs here on the channel. The long-term goal is to start running Gen 3 a little bit more frequently. The plan is to alternate between Fire Red and Emerald every 2 weeks, so that means we're only going to be playing each game once a month to begin with, and eventually when we start coming towards the end of the Pokemon Crystal content, especially with the main run leaderboard, so probably towards the latter half of next year is when we'll start mixing things up a little bit. We still have a lot of Pokemon Crystal content left to come. Of course, we've just started the End of the Line series. We've got Stuck in the Middle with You coming at the beginning of next year. And then we have the first step as well, those first stage evolutions. But it's always worth planning very far ahead, and just like what I did with Pokemon Crystal, I'm going to ease myself into it. The only difference is I didn't have a channel when I was easing myself into Pokemon Crystal, and now we've got this channel here together where we can go on the learning process together, and that is the thing that excites me the most. Being able to learn these games along with all of you, maybe if you're wanting to try challenge running yourself in Generation 3, and then we can see exactly how we get on. My one regret with this channel is starting it a little bit later than I probably should have done. I wish I'd have documented some of those early runs where I was learning the game, because I think then we could look back now when we're learning 2 future games and see that the process is incredibly similar. But as it stands, you cannot of course change the past, but you can change the future. So for the entire learning process of both Fire Red and Emerald, I am going to record and or stream every step of the way. I want it to be a whole community endeavour where we all pull together to be able to do exactly what we did in Pokemon Crystal. Because back in August 2022, a sub 2 hour run was considered relatively impressive in Pokemon Crystal, and look where we are now. Certain runners like Snowy have got that time under an hour, and that is my aim for Generation 3. I don't necessarily think that Emerald will ever be done in under an hour, but we can definitely look at whittling down those times and optimising the routing exactly like we have done before. But that's enough waffling because we're already through all of Blue's Pokemon, and we can now turn our attention to the Red fight. As always with this Red fight, we're going to start with our current level, and in this instance we're starting with our current learn set as well, so let's see how we get on. The first thing we'll notice is our speed is not above the magic number. We are not above 171, and that means we are not going to outspeed this Pikachu. We do manage to get Pikachu caught in somewhat of a healing loop, but even return is not a one-shot. We get very lucky against the Pikachu, all things considered, and we get through without any damage, and then we freeze the Venusaur. I reckon freezing is going to be a solid strategy in this particular Red fight. We're probably going to have to utilise that more often than not. We of course are not going to outspeed the Espeon, and we're taking huge damage from Psychic. We have the leftovers, but we don't survive on much health whatsoever. It's just one body slam from the Snorlax to knock us out, so we have to use our first 3 rare candies. Our speed is still under the magic number of 171, but we are very close to getting there with our next set of rare candies. We are now able to one-shot the Pikachu with return though, but we aren't quite powerful enough to two-shot the Venusaur with Ice Beam, and we take a massive Solar Beam to the face and get knocked out. We'll use another 3 rare candies, and now we're at 172 speed. We don't have to Charm Dodge anymore, and we are now comfortably in 2-shot range for the Venusaur. That does of course mean that Venusaur's going to start using Sunny Day, and that could be problematic. We still take a lot of damage from Peskyon's Psychic, but we have gleaned some very powerful information. We now know that Return is a 2-shot without Reflect on the Peskeon. We're going to get body slammed by the Snorlax and we get knocked out, So we'll use our last 4 rare candies and we'll also take the opportunity to learn Rain Dance as well. I'm hoping that we can counter Sunny Day with Rain Dance against the Venusaur, but then we see the perfect example of Gen 2's AI being completely unpredictable. The Venusaur went for Giga Drain in this instance, which already was incredibly confusing, but then on the very next attempt he decided to do something completely different again. He goes for Synthesis this time, so there are 3 permutations to this Venusaur battle, and that got incredibly confusing. However, we have to persevere, we have to work against the Gen 2 logic, and I reckon our best bet is probably a freeze. If we freeze the Venusaur, we don't have to think about any of this funny logic that it's coming out with, and we are on full health for the Espeon. We use Surf against the Espeon and we take it deep into the yellow. Surf is now comfortably a 2-shot, and that means we can turn our attention over to the Snorlax. Once again, we're going to be fishing for a freeze. That really is our best opportunity to get through this Snorlax, and that's exactly what happens. And that should mean, you know, the rest of this battle should be relatively easy. We get all the way back up to full health against the Charizard, and there are only 2 Pokemon left to go. The first, of course, being Blastoise that can barely tickle us even with a rain-boosted Surf, and that just means we've got Charizard left to go. We're going to outspeed the Charizard, and I'm fairly certain it's going to be a one-shot with Surf to finish this battle off. We grow to level 76, and we defeat Red in a time of 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 10 seconds. I am incredibly happy with this time. Seaking is a Pokemon with a lot going against it, and it gets a very well deserved 23rd place on the leaderboard, and that puts it just a couple of seconds ahead of Feraligatr. That is an incredibly good time for Seaking. It pushes Venomoth down into the page 3 drop zone, and heading up page 3 now we have Azumarill. We still have Paw Shuckle down there in 84th place, and there's no change to the top of the leaderboard. It's Ho-Oh first, Pidgeot second, and Girafarig Redo in third. Apom is perilously close to being knocked down onto page 2, and we'll have to see if Rapidash is the Pokemon able to do that. But with that, we are done. So I'm going to say thank you all so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you've enjoyed this run, remember to leave a like. If you want to see more runs just like this, then click subscribe. And until next time, I'll say thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon.